Welcome everyone. Today we will be looking at another engine game. This time we have Stockfish versus Torch in a bullet match from the chess.com rating brawl. Stockfish played an instructive game in the Nimzo-Indian, showing us how to use the H-file to crush your opponents. You ready? The game begins with d4, knight f6, c4, e6, knight c3, and bishop e4, the Nimzo-Indian. This opening has been played for decades and is still Black's best response to White's setup. Stockfish plays e3, the main line, with the idea of developing the bishop to d3, developing the knight, and then castling. We have castles, a3 attacking the bishop, and then bishop takes c3. It's important that Black waits for White to waste a tempo with a3 before taking the knight. Black will now try to play against the doubled pawns and close the position to favor his two knights. The fish will try to use the bishop pair for a kingside attack. Takes and c5. White never wants to take as he will get tripled pawns. Bishop d3 and b6, with the idea of either developing the bishop to b7 or a6, e4, expanding in the center, and knight e8 from Torch, getting out of any bishop g5 nonsense where the knight would be uncomfortably pinned. f5 from Black is also an idea in some Nimzos. Knight f3 developing the knight, and then bishop b7, castles, and d6, preventing e5, and preparing e5 himself with the hopes of closing down the center of the board and restricting the fish's bishops. Here Stockfish plays a very interesting idea. The fish plays rook a2. This move may look senseless, but has a deeper idea behind it. The fish will use this rook on the king side, and the move rook a2 prepares rook h2, which will come in the future. Knight d7 and rook e1 preparing e5. e5 from Black, meaning that White cannot play e5. It's also instructive how Black put all his pawns on dark squares to compensate for the lost dark square bishop. d5 from Stockfish. Stockfish's bishops aren't the best right now, but the engine compensates for that with the central space advantage. Bishop c8 from Torch, trying to improve the bishop. And now if you look at the fish's position, every piece is actually really well placed. The two rooks sit nicely, the knight is active, and the queen has potential when the knight moves. What's fascinating is how strong the dark square bishop is, and it hasn't even moved. Because of these factors, Stockfish sees that it's time to start the attack. h4, knight b8, retreating the knight to develop the light square bishop. This move looks funny, but it's difficult to find a better square for the knight, as if you go to f6, then the queen stops monitoring the h4 pawn, and bishop g5 is a very nice way to activate the bishop. Now Stockfish illustrates the other idea of advancing the h-pawn, and that is to give it away. Knight h2, getting out of any bishop g4 pins and dropping the h4 pawn. Queen takes h4, and now Stockfish shows the true idea of giving away the h-pawn. The idea is to use the h-file for the rooks. The rook that was put on a2 a handful of moves ago will now come into the game. g3, queen d8, and f4, opening up the second rank for the rooks. Knight d7 bringing the knight back, and knight f3. Black also doesn't want to take on f4, as that allows White to open the position for the bishops and use the g-file for the rook. f6, trying to hold the position together, but this passivity gives Stockfish enough time to continue the attack. f5. Stockfish first immobilizes the opponent's pieces, as when you attack, you usually want to close center and the defending side wants to open the center. Here Stockfish mitigates all central counterplay, closing the center, and now all the play will occur on the king side where Stockfish is strongest. Rook f7 and now rook h2. The rook finally shows its purpose and will now rain havoc onto the Black position. Knight f8 and knight h4, eyeing a potential sacrifice on the g6 square. Rook b8 and king f2. What's better than one rook on the h-file? Two rooks. b5 from Torch, desperately trying to generate some form of counterplay, but this is too slow. Rook h1 and rook b7. Both sides prepare their respective attacks on opposite sides of the board. Queen h5 and b4. This is a slight mistake, as it was better to play b takes c4, opening up the file for the rook. Keeping the file closed dramatically reduces the power of the rooks. Now I ask you to please pause the video to find the brilliant move that Stockfish played in this position. In this position, Stockfish sacrificed the knight with the brilliant knight g6. Torch cannot take the knight due to f takes g6, and now the king runs out of escape squares, and white is completely winning. Torch plays bishop d7, and the Stockfish plays queen g4, still leaving the knight to die. You still cannot take due to the same idea. Torch instead decides to sacrifice the bishop, but this is a poor decision, and now Stockfish is completely winning. He takes f5, and then queen e7, completely giving away the queen. Don't play moves like this. Practically for a human, it's better to keep your queen, but for engines, Torch thinks it's lost, and this move prolongs the game for the most amount of time. Engines are so precise that Stockfish didn't even take the queen. It chose c takes b4. It thought this was a quicker and more efficient way to win. Queen d7 from Torch, and now Stockfish sees mate in 14. You can pause the video to try and find it, but I wouldn't really do that. Stockfish starts the combination with the brilliant rook takes h7. Knight takes g6 from Torch. You can't take the rook twice, as the fish would have queen h5 and queen h8, and f8 mate at the end. Queen takes g6 from the fish, and now Torch starts running. King f8, rook h8, king e7, rook 1 h7, and king d8. Rook takes g8, queen e7, and now any normal person takes the queen and then just wins. But Stockfish prefers the insane bishop g5, just putting the bishop on a square where it can be captured. Rook d7, and now rook takes e7. Queen takes f6, rook b7, and queen d6 check. King c8, bishop takes e7, rook b6, rook takes e8 check, king b7, queen takes c5, king a6, queen c8, rook b7 and c5, a lovely discovered pawn mate. I hope you enjoyed this game and learned something. Now, go promote some pawns.